Hi friends, I thought today we can dive back into Groundwork, defining neutrals. If you would like to see swatches and a few demos, you can head over to my Beautylish gift card event video for spring. I'll have the timestamps for defining neutrals. Many of you had asked that I dive back into this palette because the dialogue generated was basically, I have this palette but I haven't used it, or I've used it and I haven't much luck with it. And I originally wanted or thought to film separate b-roll of me using the palette on my own and getting more acquainted with it, but those videos are longer for me to edit because I have to integrate that footage with the talking footage. So I thought maybe it would be easier on me so I could get this video out faster to just film myself applying Groundwork here with you, and perhaps that will create even more dialogue surrounding the palette, what brushes you have better luck with or not luck with, what shades you use for this task on your face, on your eyes, on the lips, just to get a better idea. And I do have different brushes in front of me to see how we can best judge this velvet pomade, which is the star formula of the Groundwork palette. And I know Blooming Romance just released. I'm holding back on it. I'm not buying it yet because I just received this. I understand this is comped and I didn't pay for it, but because I have so much makeup now from defining neutrals, I wanted to hold off on Blooming Romance. And the reason I held off defining neutrals for so long is because at the time I was transitioning into owning less makeup. I don't use skincare anymore and basically only wore makeup when I filmed for YouTube. And I thought it would have been a waste for me to purchase a product that I feel shines if you use this every day. As a beauty enthusiast, of course, this would be amazing if you are a makeup professional because you have so many shades and undertones at your disposal. But for me and myself and I thought this was a lot of makeup for like a 2 to 3 time makeup frequency wearer that I was. But I thought, you know what, maybe I'll wear a little more because I do use jojoba oil to take off the makeup, so it hasn't been that bad. And I do use soap to cleanse the residue, but maybe I'll just use a cleanser. I'm not entirely sure. I'm still playing with it. But let's get into it. I have my Suku foundation on in 040. I did apply concealer because, well, I understand that some of these shades can be used for correcting and concealing. I much rather use a dedicated concealer for my under eyes. I don't have major discoloration, just minor, so I didn't think I needed that much correction to begin with. I could go in with the powder of sandstone to maybe brighten my inner corners a little bit more, and then we'll go into the other shades to see how they wear on the cheeks for sculpting and bronzing, and then we'll get into the eyes. But before we begin, it's time for you to come in a little closer. That's enough. Now, a few things about the Velvet Pomade. That is the formula found in the larger pans, and the Shape and Fix powder, which has the Upslight technology, originally found in the Blurring Balm from the Yummy Skin line, I think a few years ago, is found in the Shape and Fix powder. And what Upslight does is soak up excess oil and sweat and kind of has this refreshing quality about it where the skin looks more soft matte all day. It doesn't look dull and worn like, ooh, maybe you need to reapply something. And the Velvet Pomade is Danessa's newest formula. It was at the time, and it kind of reminded me of Natasha Denona's cream to powder formula. I know it's not the same, but in terms of just this putty like texture that you feel when you press on the Velvet Pomade, and I feel like some are more delicate than others, but you see how it moves? Sandstone is kind of weird. Sandstone is very mobile, if you will. But this is the finish. You can detect there might be a little bit of a sheen, but not really. It's more of a soft matte finish to the skin. And why Danessa insisted, I think, in having the Shape and Fix in smaller pans, because the Velvet Pomade itself is meant to be long wearing and have that matte finish on the skin, matte to natural finish, I believe. So you wouldn't need a powder, but the Shape and Fix powder is present to perhaps increase longevity for the wear time, maybe change the nuance of color just for that reinforcement and again color enhancement. But mostly the Velvet Pomade is used. But I think the number one critique people were sharing on my Beautylish video is the velvet pomade is a little tricky, which is funny because I think Danessa had meant to create something that was easy to use, easy to blend when it got on the skin, but I think that is the issue. How do we get velvet pomade to skin seamlessly? Because once it's on, the blending's a breeze, 100%. If you are a beginner, I think blending the velvet pomades is far easier than blending a powder, especially for eyes, because Danessa had mentioned on one of her Teach Me Tuesdays that a lot of makeup wearers are intimidated by the eye makeup application in their routine, which is probably why they skip it or don't do eyes at all. And she wanted to create a texture that was easy to blend on the eyes, and I have to give the velvet pomade that. I do think it's fairly easy to blend on the eyes, but you got to get them on the eyes first, you know what I mean? So let's play with that. I thought to just start with the complexion first, and I don't have my foundation set because I thought that there'd be a little more adherence and will therefore provide a better foundation for the velvet pomade. So I thought I would grab Sonia's Sheer Fusion. Now I wish, for the sake of how small these pans are, that the Sheer Fusion, or excuse me, Sheer Buffer, my apologies, was a little smaller, but I could pinch the brush. I want to start with Desert because I thought Desert was quite nice as a softer sculpt versus Chiseled. Chiseled looked cool on me. That's not bad. Is Sheer Fusion the ideal brush to use with the velvet pomades? Let me grab this. Okay. This is Sonia's original first base one. You can see it has a similar stippling design as the Sheer Buffer, but for size sake, maybe this will work a little bit better. And I'm swiping and then we'll tap. That's not bad. Maybe the stippled brush works best. Maybe. And I remember Danessa mentioning that she likes to tap on the product so there's better application, because when you swipe it, you're also moving the product and you're not building up the color if you're constantly moving it around. I get that. I absolutely get that. Let's go with Harvest. I think I used Harvest in my Beautylish video, and I could tap. I just don't think tapping yields the best pickup. I feel like swiping does. And let's go in with, okay. You know what? I think you gotta use a stippled brush. Sonia, can you make a smaller version of Sheer Buffer, please? Just for defining neutrals. Just for this palette, okay? Tell all the artisans in Kumano, Japan, we're having an exclusive design created just for Groundwork. The entire Groundwork series. So whatever Groundwork palette Danessa decides to release after Blooming Romance, we'll have the brushes ready. Is that selfish for us to ask? This is working a lot better. And listen, when the velvet pomade is on, I like how it looks on the skin. It feels like, or doesn't look dry at all, despite it being more of a soft matte finish. I wouldn't dare use the Shape and Fix powder on my face. I think that would change the color and will deepen it too much for what I'm looking to achieve. I want to get into Sandstone though. I feel this has something to offer. So let me get a little bit and then put, oh, was that like a little bit of a chunk? Oh, a little chunky, it's fine. Let's place some of Sandstone on the cheekbones. Okay, that offered a little bit of brightening. That wasn't too bad. Maybe it was a little too much. I have leftover Desert, I believe, on my Sheer Buffer to smooth out that transition. This isn't too bad. I like what's happening. If we wanted a little more, however, I actually like this brush from the BK Beauty and Nikki LaRose collab, from which you can buy singles now, because originally released as a collection, now available as singles, N14 specifically. Brush size ideal for the pan size where you can tap or swipe. And this is a synthetic brush. The Sheer Buffer is a synthetic and natural hair mix. Ooh, Bark offers some bite. Maybe a little too much for my skin tone in terms of sculpting. I don't think I need to use this shade, although sheer buffer is helping to blend that application. I think it looks a little too shadowy now. This side definitely better for my complexion. Again, I used Harvest. Great color to add a little bit of sculpt, but I think more warmth than anything. Core, I feel, perhaps can work better with the sheer buffer. I applied core in my Beautylish video with my Tuckahoe CMP 15, I believe. I think that was too dense of a brush for an even application, or one that I wanted to achieve. Going back with base 1, but with core on the center of my face to perhaps create a little more whatever this is happening. So there is some discoloration here. I see it on my mirror because I mistakenly went in with bark just to experiment, but sandstone is a weird texture. Sandstone, I feel like, is on the softer side for some reason and harder to deal with. Just taking my original foundation brush I used to apply my Suku to help clean up that. Okay, that's a lot better. I gotta say, if you made an error, the velvet pomade texture is quite easy to remedy in that you just gotta pound sand. It will lighten up the error and kind of erase your mistakes. I do want to use the sandstone powder, the Shape and Fix powder, to provide a little more highlight on the inner corners of my eye. I think this be it a nice region, yes, to use this powder on. And that's what I'll do. It's not super brightening on me, but I do think it provides a little more evenness here and just cleaning up that application all around my cheekbones. Going into the eyes, I could apply some concealer, or I could go in with Danessa's primer, but I have Linda's primer on standby, and like Danessa's primer, it doesn't have any color, but if you do have unevenness and discoloration on your lids, you might have to reach for the NARS primer or the MAC Paint Pot, something with pigment to help with that lid discoloration, but I don't have too much, so the Linda one will work just fine. Let's start with Desert, and I'll take my BK Beauty and Nikki LaRose blender in N13, and I like this brush for the velvet pomades. It's a synthetic brush, it moves pretty well, and I do think the swipe method works best for the pickup, at least for the eyes. And I do like Desert as that shade color for my complexion. It gives just enough, but it's not as cool toned as Chiseled. Chiseled is going to be a little more neutral cool leaning on my complexion, and Desert, I discovered, is a great color if I just needed some shading through my crease, not too much, just to provide a little bit of that contouring through my eye. And if you want to see what that looks like using the Shape and Fix powder for Desert, using the same brush, and I'll tap first so I can evenly distribute the product first on the outer lid, as I want the majority of the color to start there, and then I'll continue to carry the color through my crease in order for the blend to appear even. I think that's pretty. It's smooth. I mean, you cannot detect any lines of demarcation there. And let me know down below, family, if you have textured lids, how does the velvet pomade perform on your lids? Does it latch on to texture, or does it move better than powders? Please let us know down below. I can only speak for my lids. We don't have a lot of texture yet, but it's coming. Listen, I'm 39 and I'm heading into a new era. I'm excited, but I just want to be ready. I would like to, you know what? Let me try Sculpted. I could use Harvest, but I think I used Harvest already in my demo. Same brush here, swiping across the pan. And if you want to see what that looks like, I'm lightly grazing the brush. I'm not pressing in. There's no need to do that. If you graze, then I feel you'll pick up enough product to deposit on the skin. Notice I like to start on my outer lid, as I want the gradient to begin there, meaning the most concentrated placement of color I would like to place on my lid, and then continue to carry that shade through my crease, and then I could slowly carry it through in my lower lash line. And that's pretty. I do love the velvet pomades for the eyes, and I agree with Danessa in that these are a lot easier to blend than powders, because powders, if you don't prep the lid area well, it tends to grab onto more oily spots and the blend is not smooth. But I mean, this is fun to use because it's so easy. And you're like, it's easy for you. Okay, I'm like, I know that. I know I've been blending for a while. But listen, not too bad if you don't have to work as hard with the powder. You know what I mean? Let's grab a smaller brush. This is one of my Towel House brushes. It's not synthetic, but I think compatible with the Velvet Pomade, as I could use this bristle with creams just to place a little bit here on the lower outer part of my eye. We could go back over to this side and maybe use Harvest to place a little more color on the outer lid, because we originally went in with Desert, and now Harvest will provide a little more shading here, not too much. And something you had mentioned is that the color intensity, you were expecting a little more, much like what Natasha Denona did with her cream to powders in formulating a texture that places the dial in your hands in terms of controlling the intensity. Where the Velvet Pomades, you can build the intensity accordingly, and it doesn't start as saturated initially. There's time to build the color, there's time to blend it out, and the Velvet Pomades definitely allow you to do that. But the trade-off is that first application might be soft, it might be light, and you just have to grab the right brush and maybe go in a couple of times in order to achieve that intensity you want. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to build the Harvest intensity to what I like, and I think we did it. If we wanted a little more definition, we can use one of the darker colors here, maybe Sculpted or Tourmaline, perhaps. Can you stay in focus, please? Perhaps one of the Shape and Fix powders. Let's try actually using a Shape and Fix powder to see how the color changes, right? I think I used Harvest on this side. Tappity tap tap first on the outer lid, and yes, I do think that makes a significant change to how the shading appears, and a nice option to take, right, if you wanted to intensify the color of the Velvet Pomades. And I gotta say, the texture of the Velvet Pomades is sensational on the lids, 100%. When you find the right brush and you find the right feel of things, I think it can work out pretty well. Let's go into, I want a shade. I need a shader. You know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for one of Sonia's smudges because they are goated. The Kiyaki Kakishibu smudger, because these are undyed goat hair bristles, Sonia said you can use them with creams, but not frequently. Therefore, just for the sake of the demo, I wanted to use Sculpted on the lash line. Now, an advantage to the Velvet Pomade texture is how easy it can be to line your lash line. I think one of the steps of a typical eye routine can be quite challenging for many, and the fact the Velvet Pomade is smooth enough to sketch easily on the lash line, I think encourages more users to take on the step, especially when creating a wing, right? Because the color is not intense off the get. Therefore, you have time to lightly draft out your wing, so there's little room for error. And once you have that base shape down, that's where you could go in with a little more color and intensify the entire wing. And where I think an ideal opportunity to go in with the Shape and Fix to not only intensify the shading, but then also improve the staying power. I'm going into the Sculpted Shape and Fix powder over the Velvet Pomade, and that definitely locks in the color and also I think helps with the staying power. I am lightly going in with Sandstone just to clean up the base of my wing, because I always screw this up. I feel because I angle too low and I have to take it higher. I always underestimate my wings. I need to take it because you know what, I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again because we could do better. Might not be ideal, but I'm taking a tissue and just carefully wiping just a little bit, because I think we can salvage this, friends. We just got the base. You could actually stop there. You're like, Alicia, that's enough. But I am redoing the wing so it can be higher. Much better. Well, it looks like trash now, but it's gonna get better. This, I feel, will present an overall better shape. And now to fix, I'm going in with concealer because I need something a little more hardy to fix my error there. And what I like to do is tap on the back of my hand, this time taking a synthetic brush, as I think this is a little too wet to use with the Kakishibu bristles. Therefore, using my concealer to shape this in a way that makes the wing look a little better. I'm gonna tappity tap right underneath. There we go. I think we're onto something. I'm going back into sculpted because I insist on fixing this. Okay, that's better. That's better. So the reason I'm having a problem with this is definitely not because of the texture. It's because I angled it wrong from the beginning and I had to start over. But you saw the velvet pomade was pretty easy to wipe off. And you're like, well, how can that be long wearing if it was either... Listen, because I applied pressure, I didn't have the shape and fix on, all right? I don't think these will fade quickly, but let me know if they do, because I didn't wear it out for long. I want to place something on my lid, maybe sandstone. I do think sandstone has the softest texture out of all the velvet pomades. It's the one that's the most messed up. I'm placing this on my lid. I actually think it's the weakest performing texture. It just has these bits. Like when I use my brush to pick it up, maybe I messed it up. Maybe I ruined it by pressing my finger too hard in it. When I first took it out and I was pressing on the velvet pomades, maybe I pressed too hard. But that's not bad. I don't like how that looks though. Using Desert to help bring down that highlight a little bit, and I'm purposely bringing it closer to my nose. Actually, going in with chiseled. I think chiseled can be a great color for the upper region of the nose. That does provide really nice shading, I gotta say. This is a great area for chiseled, for me anyway. I could see how, whoa, if I just careful, all right, let's not get too crazy. Oh, chisel nice on the nose. It's nice on the nose. I very good. We'll continue, please. Tourmaline, anyone? Right here, because ain't it nice to have an easy texture to blend? That's black. Look how that, okay, this might have to be my favorite part about defining neutrals. When it comes to black, especially eyeshadow, she could be tricky, but to lightly tap and all it take a few strokes, additional taps to move the product. And I already had 2 velvet pomades on my lid, as you saw. The layering ain't bad. It didn't take off what I originally had on my outer lid. It didn't take off what I had through my crease. It added that shading, and look how lovely that looks. This is just one demo. I'm going in again. This video might be long, but they're timestamps, okay? If you get antsy, because I know how some of you are. A little bit of the Tourmaline Velvet Pomade on my lower lash line. I also want to bring in some bark on this eye to create that nice bracket. You know what I mean? All right. I'm going to put on some lashes, and while I'm on camera, applying Hourglass's Sparrow, which, this shade, stop it right now. Or should I use, darn it, I'll just use Groundwork. All right, Mirage for the lips. Oh man, Mirage, I messed up. This is my Towel House lip brush. Basically, the velvet pomades feel like a soft matte lipstick on the lips. That's Mirage. That's like a nice beige for my complexion. But now, what shall we place on the outer? Harvest or Bark? Let's try Harvest as my lip liner. Not too bad in applying this velvet pomade as like a liner moment. All right, that's not bad. That's actually really pretty. Mirage and Harvest for the win. For the beigey dark brown liner moment. Do we like? Let me know down below. Let's apply these lashes and I'll be right back. Demo 1 complete, and I have to say something I recognized from my Beautylish video when seeing my footage is how defining neutrals is giving me soft glam 90s model. You can't go wrong with a matte look for eyes, lips, and cheeks. It just looks refined, it looks elegant, and I think fairly easy to achieve. The reason why it took me this long is because I was yapping while I was applying and figuring things out, but the eyes are exceptional. And if you wanted to reinforce the staying power, what I did is went in with the Sandstone Shape and Fix powder on my lids just to create that softer transition of color from lid to outer lid. But I really like how this looks. Is this moving me towards Blooming Naturals? Not really, because I actually, despite how much I love those shades, okay, I'm sitting well with the defining neutrals at the moment. The last demo, I would like to go now in with Stone and create a smoky eye with tourmaline, and maybe try something else on the cheeks, maybe. But I think we've already identified that for my complexion, and if you are a shade twin, Desert is great for a sculpting moment on the cheekbones if you wanted some soft contouring there. Harvest is my bronzing color, if you will. I could try Bark. Maybe I'll try Bark on the next one to get a little more hardy in the cheekbones, but I want to try Stone through the crease and tourmaline all over the lids. So if that sounds like a plan to you, let me take this off and I'll be right back. Makeup reapplied, immediately going in with Bark. No, Chiseled. You wanted to see Chiseled in action? Compared to Desert, Desert has a little more like of an olive undertone there, which my complexion appreciates. And I also use Chiseled on my Beautylish vid. However, if you want to see what Chiseled looks like again, it does have too much of a cool undertone for my liking. I'd rather have this on my eyes. With that said, I'm going to pounce off a little bit and then start with Desert. For me, Desert is the ideal sculpt shade for my complexion from defining neutrals, because it's a great foundation if I wanted to start lightly with the contouring. And I mentioned that I wanted to use a little bit of Bark. I'm wondering, you know what, I'm going to try this Towel House brush because it's a flat top, and I could use, ooh, whoa, that's a lot of color. That's a lot of color. You know what, I'm thinking maybe Bark is a little too dark for me. This would be great for Halloween. If I was looking to create like that skeleton look, I mean, I'll probably go in with Storm or Tourmaline. Gotta say though, if you make a mistake, it's pretty easy to rectify. So let's go in with Harvest. I think from experimenting as much as I have between my Beautylish vid and through now, Desert and Harvest are my go-to cheek shades for Groundwork. So if you are my complexion and you are wondering, just based on what I've applied so far, these are the shades that I have the most success with. Mirage could be something I think probably would be better to sculpt with or to shape with, right? If I wanted to carve out under the cheekbone and create a little more definition, then maybe I'll go in with Mirage. But right now, I'm going to stick with Harvest. I think that's the best color right now. And again, I'm using my base 1 brush and gently swiping the brush head in the Velvet Pomade pan to get enough color, and then just to swipe here on the forehead. Yeah, that's the best one we got. Using my Linda primer, as I previously said, I want to experiment with Desert. No, not Desert. I want to experiment with Stone and then Tourmaline all over the lid, because probably Velvet Pomade, your best bet if you wanted to create that smoky okay eye, but in like 2 seconds. Mirage as my base lid color, and perhaps a color I can rely on just to clean the lid. If I wanted a clean canvas and maybe just wanted to throw on sculpted Bark on the lash line, even Tourmaline, so that the lid can appear just you know, that color. Let me wipe my Nikki LaRose brush, as this has been fairly successful in picking up the velvet pomade textures. And I'll go in with Stone in the same fashion, just wiping back and forth and then pulling that through the lid and crease. So just based on how it appears in pan, I think you can immediately detect that grayish tone. And it's nice, right? It's cool tone, but if you wanted a little more structure, you could go in again with Bark, Sculpted, or Tourmaline. Why don't we do that? Because I want to create a little more shading here, and I am wiping my brush between applications, so there's no color crossover. I mean, inevitably they will combine once on the lid, but just to mitigate any muddiness, I am wiping between applications. I'm going in with Sculpted on the outer corner, and this appears definitely more neutral cool, as I am sure if I went in with, like, let's say Core first and then followed with a warmer, darker shade like Harvest, it will have more of a warmer hue to the eyes. Going in with Sculpted now on the lower lash line just to connect what we have on the lid. And I'm thinking maybe to add a little bit of the Sculpted powder. I want to turn up the intensity a little bit here on the outer lid, maybe add some staying power, and then brushing that under as well. Ooh, that's pretty. That's a pretty smoky eye. That's not super dark, and I think pretty nice for the day, depending, I get it, depending on what type of a makeup wearer you are. You're probably thinking, why aren't you using Sonia's Fusion brushes? You're right. I don't know. Well, let me get my Sonia. Hold on. Let me grab a worker. I think Fusion Worker is going to be our MVP for Tourmaline, because we're going straight in lid, because if we want to create the smoky oaky eye, and I have to say, if you want it like that New Year's all black smoky eye, the Velvet Pomade is going to be a top-notch choice, where usually it is recommended when dealing with black eyeshadow that you apply a transition shade first, something that is a little deeper than your skin tone, where it's going to carry the black color in a more even fashion, or I should say outer lid to crease, but it's done. Sure, I got to clean up a little bit here, and for me to achieve that, I am wiping my brush and with no additional product, sweeping it on the inner part of my eye. And to clean that up even more, I'll take the sandstone powder and I'm just tapping that on the inner part of my eye to soften that transition there. And look at that. We're done. But not quite, almost. Let me grab Sonia's Fusion pencil. I thought I saw it in this one here. Yes. Well, it's her Kiyaki. It's the detail, the Kiyaki detail. It's the same combination as the Fusion pencil. I just wanted a smaller brush to place the Velvet Pomade under the lash line because it's giving, okay? And you can wear these on the waterline. And for me to achieve that, I will take a small shadow liner brush, my Towel House one, with the Velvet Pomade and just lightly go in my waterline and just tap. Not too bad. Surprisingly, I rather do this than use a pencil. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it appears softer at film capacity, but you do run the risk of tearing up a bit because the contact time is longer, right, with brush to waterline. And I'm already like tearing up a little bit. My allergies haven't been great, so my lash line is more sensitive than usual, but not to worry, it's gonna be fine. Taking my Nikki LaRose and just moving the Velvet Pomade more thoroughly through the crease and just whipping it out beyond the lash line, but going back into worker and now using the powder. This is where we're truly locking in the smoke, and I am simply tapping the Tourmaline Shape and Fix powder over the Velvet Pomade for reinforcement in terms of wear and color richness. And that, listen, I gotta give it to Defining Neutrals for creating seamlessly easy smoky eyes in whatever capacity, whether it's soft glam or this. Listen, you saw how easy it was to achieve the smoky eye. And now, because of my experience, I would just bring Defining Neutrals. I wouldn't even bother bringing my other black eyeshadows or palettes that have a black shadow. Why? Why would you do that when you have this? And I'm not saying that now you have to buy this for the sole purpose of you creating smoky eyes, especially if you don't use or create this eye often. However, great incentive if this type of eye look is one that you have challenges with consistently. Every time you attempt it is trash. Not with this velvet pomade. I mean, the way it latches onto the skin and moves easily, how it creates a gradient just from the texture itself. It doesn't need an additional color. It doesn't need a transition shade. Although from our last demo, we saw how tourmaline easily works with the other shades here, right? If you feel more comfortable laying down a more medium shade from the velvets and then tapping on tourmaline to create a lighter smoke, but it still be easy blend-wise, and you could take on those steps. For instance, we could add a little bit of tourmaline here just to show it doesn't have to be a lot. Again, swiping carefully, but to control the intensity, start closer to the lash line and then begin to tap up. And see how I'm tapping in an arced fashion? I think that's the best way to distribute the color, where you have control over its placement and it doesn't escape you quickly, that you still have a handle of where it ends up. If you want a little more coloring on the lower lash line, again, taking my little Kiyaki detail brush and just placing tourmaline on the outer quarter of my lower lash line, running my N13 through the crease just to finish everything up. I think that's it. We already have some going on the cheeks already. I applied Harvest again. I think that's going to be my main source of color for whatever I have on the eyes, but we could do a little something else for the lip. Maybe perhaps we could go in with Harvest as our main lip color. It's gonna give a little more brown, that's for sure. And now Sculpted, so I could actually see the contrast happening, you know what I mean, because I want the Harvest shade to be the main lid color and then Sculpted to be the defining one. I am messing up this lip. I went too far and it's just a matter of softening the edges because I went a little crazy with Sculpted, but it's okay. Let's get ready with these lashes and I'll be right back. Round 2 is complete, and I think this is the one that convinced me that Defining Neutrals is something. I am now aligned with the enthusiasm from Groundwork users when they had expressed their gratitude for this palette, how easy it was for them to use every day. They could choose the intensity if they wanted a soft sculpt or a hardier one, and the undertones I think are truly special and I think immediately recognized by the success of Danessa's brow line. And you're thinking like, what does the brow line got to do with like an all face palette? Listen, Danessa is a professional makeup artist. She knows skin, and when you nail brow colors like that, I feel like face and eyes are gravy after, in terms of undertones and shades. And yes, I get it that there's a little bit of a learning curve because of the velvet pomade texture, but I think if you find the right brush for you, and in this case with our experiment, we mostly use natural synthetic hybrids. Specifically, the sheer buffer, the base one. I used a little bit of the Towel House. This, I think, is like a dyed goat hair that can be used with creams. I also think another exceptional brush is the Nikki LaRose BK Beauty collab in N15. Much like how I use the N13 on my eyes, just sweeping the brush like so, I think picks up enough product where you could just pounce it on the skin as you see here. And I feel that's going to be the most successful route to take. If you had problems picking up this texture, I like to swipe. I think that's the best way to get color from pan to skin. And again, Desert and Harvest are my go-tos for the cheeks using defining neutrals. You can see how pretty easy it is. I feel generally synthetic is best with this texture. I do. Natural can be tricky. I wouldn't do natural, especially depending on how the brush is shaped. If it's dense, I wouldn't pounce on because it will feel quite prickly. If it's synthetic, it's nice and soft and you could pounce it on in this way. But the Mizuho, I think, is too dense, right? If you're like, which one is that one? Despite it being also synthetic, I think this is too dense for the velvet pomades. The best type is one that's synthetic and has pretty nice movement. This reminds me of the Wayne Goss artist brush. His synthetic series has that big powder brush, but I don't think an ideal shape because it's too large for the pan sizes. But this is a perfect size brush. I wonder if I have Fusion series, classic base from Sonia's Fusion series could work. If she made like a synthetic version of her classic cheek that's found in her newer foundation series, that will be great as well because that's a natural synthetic mix and I think it picks up the velvet pomades quite well. And I agree with Danessa in that you get the best color payoff when you tap it on. You see how rich it appears there throughout my cheekbones. I love how Harvest looks. It's not too much, and despite it being warmer leaning, I still think it gives sculpt, right? It's not so bronzy overall. If I wanted to bring in a little more warmth, then I'm tapping core here closer near to my nose on the apples of my cheeks, and I think that balances it out a little bit. But Tourmaline is exceptional. I mean, the way I was able to just create this smoky eye in no time at all, the blending is seamless. You just tap on the velvet pomade, work it up through your crease as much color as you like, and it just holds your hand for you. And the fact that I could create smokiness too, but dial it down and just keep it conservative if I wanted a softer glam smoke for during the day, and having the different darker browns in here allows for more opportunity if I wanted a smokier eye, but it appearing more warm brown or neutral brown. And Desert, Stone, Chiseled serving as like my contour shades for my crease, and having the option of wearing these on the lip. I know this is giving dark lip, but it's not bad. I don't mind wearing the velvet pomades on the lip. They are matte, but they're lightweight. They feel pretty good. I think a stiff lip brush is going to work best in having precision in outlining the lip so the color won't bleed beyond that. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy. I'm happy we experimented. I'm just tapping Mirage here on the center, see what it does. A little bit of a lip gradient, if you will. Hopefully this encouraged you to try Groundwork if you haven't used it, if you didn't have any luck with it. Again, I think synthetic mix is best. Medium density with a medium length, I think for me in terms of application is ideal. Let me know what your experience has been with defining neutrals. If you already have Blooming Romance, if you use it already, if I should get it, I do have a gift card, so it won't be coming out of my pocket, and I bumped down from Rouge to VIB. So I'm only getting 15%. Should I wait for a better sale? You'll let me know down below. I'll see you down in those comments. And until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial, Groundwork video, or maybe Blooming Romance. You'll never know. Take care, and I'll see you again soon.